Israel is banking on its air campaign to wear out the Iranians. We bring in retired four-star Air Force General Philip Breedlove, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO. General, it is good to see you as always. Thanks for being with us. I think about an old line that you can't occupy ground from the air. At some point, either the Israelis or the Americans, do they need to put boots on the ground to actually end Iran's nuclear program?
Well, first of all, Leland, thanks for having me on. And there's a difference between occupying and ending a war by occupation and taking out a specific objective like the nuclear program of Iran. I don't think a ground war is required to accomplish the objectives that have been stated by the Israelis. And I don't think either Israel or the United States or anyone relishes the idea of a ground incursion into Iran.
We think about the amount of military hardware heading towards the Mediterranean and the Gulf. More than a dozen naval destroyers, 2 carrier battle groups, multiple fighter wings, the F-16, which you used to fly, the F-22, which you used to command. There's also 26 or more aerial tankers. Over and over on cable news, all we see is a B-2 bomber flying over and it dropping the massive ordnance penetrator and it blows up Fordo and we're done. Think back from a planning perspective. Take us backwards. If we as citizens are seeing this massive military buildup, what does it mean the Pentagon is planning for?
Well, the Pentagon is like it's always going to do, is planning for a wide range of responses. We have to be ready. And so I think that the Pentagon is moving an immense amount of air power, both land and sea-based air power, into the region. And of course, almost everything in this long flying region depends on tankers, communication, and all of those things that the air forces of our joint community bring to the problem. And I want to but I want to add a little detail to something you said earlier. You talked about how the Israelis were shooting down all of these missiles. Well, the United States is involved in that as well. And big portions of these naval assets are really involved in the counter missile fight that's going on.
Well, I guess that sort of makes my point as well. And I think you're right to point out that the Americans are helping. But the number of interceptors is not unlimited.
That's
so
correct.
Does that put time on the side of the Israelis or on the side of the Iranians as President Trump makes his decision?
Well, the first reaction is, and the easy but may not be correct reaction is, time is not on Israel's side. But what we're not seeing, we saw some in the very first day, what we're not seeing is Israel is not only taking down those portions of the nuclear program in Iran that it can, but Israel's taking down many other big assets of it, the Iranian military. You saw some of their very best airplanes getting blown up in detail one by one in the first couple of nights. So Israel is not only striking those targets that its ordnance is capable against, but it is taking out major pieces of this Iranian military capability along the ways.
All right, let's talk capabilities, because there seems to be a disagreement between President Trump and the Prime Minister of Israel about whether or not the Israelis themselves, as they would say blue and white, can take care of Iran's nuclear program.
The goal that I set is to destroy the Iranian nuclear weapons program, and we have the capabilities of achieving it.
They really have a very limited capacity. They could break through a little section, but they can't go down very deep. They don't have that capacity, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it won't be necessary.
You know the Israelis, you've trained with them, you know a lot of their capabilities. Would Prime Minister Netanyahu have started this war if they didn't have a few tricks up their sleeve?
Well, the Israeli military is extremely capable. And they do have the capability to take down a major portion of this nuclear capability just from the air. But I believe to take out Fordo, it would take a ground incursion. And we in the international community have fouled that opportunity for Israel. All people are talking about on the TV is the possible ground incursion. So strategic surprise is lost. And most of what Israel does when they do a ground incursion relies on surprise, deception, et cetera, and so we have really hampered their ability to bring that piece to the battlefield.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.